We are in the Bronx, where Armadillo is standing in an old junkyard, furiously throwing cars around. Spider-Woman arrives and tries to calm Armadillo down, but he yells at her to leave him alone. Ignoring his warning, she walks toward him and leaps forward, landing a powerful punch charged with her powers. She makes it clear that she already tried asking nicely. Without hesitation, she follows the punch with a kick, reminding him that he threw a car at her. She pins him to the ground and, instead of asking politely again, chooses a more painful way to get answers. Armadillo groans in pain, but still manages to respond, admitting that she's persistent. Spider-Woman stands over him with a small smile, acknowledging that she's heard that before. As he starts recovering from the fight, Armadillo opens up and explains that he once ran with Zemo's crew, but only for a brief time. Zemo had promised to cure him, but things didn't work out. He says it was a different time, and the worst people were in charge. The moment he got a chance to turn against them, he took it. Spider-Woman listens carefully and tells him that she interrogated Taskmaster to get a list of trained goons, but every lead so far has been a dead end. Now, she says she's desperate for any information he can provide. Armadillo sits down against a nearby car, lowers his head, and tells her he has nothing to offer. He insists that despite his appearance, he's not a monster and has no idea what Hydra is currently up to. Meanwhile, at a Hydra facility, Diamondback heads toward the entrance. Security guards stop him and search him thoroughly. Once they finish, they let him pass. As he walks in, he remarks confidently that he doesn't need a weapon because he is the weapon. A Hydra agent hears his voice and warns him that if he tries to steal, attack, or even become untrustworthy, they will kill him. Diamondback calmly steps closer and tells her that she'll only try to kill him, leaving her momentarily confused. She opens the gate and allows him to enter the laboratory. Inside, Diamondback meets Hydra agent Isaac Tate, who greets him by name and says the superiors are pleased with how he's circulated their product. Diamondback smiles and pulls out his card, claiming the product as his own and referring to their formula. While running some tests, Isaac admits that the original formula had deadly side effects for users, which wasn't good for business. Still, he praises Diamondback's branding and outreach. He then reveals that Hydra has a new proposition for him. Suddenly, Viper appears on a monitor in front of Isaac and greets Diamondback. She explains that although Hydra was humbled when they lost power, they have adapted. She says there are many ways to rebuild an empire. She reveals that New York's criminal underworld is on the verge of all-out war, and Hydra wants to back a general with ambition. She reminds Diamondback that he once came close to ruling the city and suggests that with Hydra's resources, he could finally succeed. After listening, Diamondback simply asks what's in it for him. Back in Manhattan, Spider-Woman stands alone on the rooftop of her apartment, deep in thought. She tries to convince herself that she's strong enough to walk into her own apartment. She finally opens the door and steps inside, only to find the place in complete disarray. Looking around, she jokes to herself that Mary Poppins clearly didn't stop by while she was out dealing with low-level criminals and drug dealers. Her eyes fall on a photo of her friends on the wall. She grabs her head, overwhelmed, and tells herself there must be something in the room. She starts searching every corner until she spots an envelope near the edge of the bed. Her heart skips a beat as she picks it up and opens it. Holding the item inside close to her chest, she feels certain that she's not losing her mind. She whispers to herself about her baby and makes a silent vow to find them. Just then, the window creaks open. Spider-Woman turns quickly and sees Captain Marvel standing there with a smile. Feeling a mix of relief and surprise, she hides the item behind her and scolds her friend for not knocking, while also complimenting her new outfit. Captain Marvel steps inside and casually brushes off the scolding, saying the worst she'd get from Spider-Woman was a tickle. She mentions that she tried knocking, calling, and even texting. She nearly sent out an Avengers Reserve alert before finally checking with mutual friends, including Julia Carpenter, who turned out to be not very helpful despite her connection to the web of life. Spider-Woman runs a hand through her hair and finally admits that it's been a rough few weeks. Captain Marvel stares at Spider-Woman, noticing something unusual about her appearance. She points out that her hair roots are showing, something Spider-Woman never usually lets happen. Spider-Woman quickly glances at herself in the mirror and touches her hair, trying to reassure herself that the change is barely visible. She knows Captain Marvel can only tell because of how observant she is. Captain Marvel, in a light tone, reminds her that it's not some superpower, just her being attentive. She steps closer, gently places a hand on Spider-Woman's shoulder, and calmly expresses her concern. She says that Spider-Woman has been acting strange lately. Spider-Man mentioned that something odd happened involving her and the other spiders. Captain Marvel admits that it's not really her area of expertise, but she reminds Spider-Woman that they're best friends and she can always open up to her. Looking down with sadness, Spider-Woman quietly asks if Captain Marvel notices what's missing from her apartment. Captain Marvel glances around the room and, seeing the mess, jokingly says a good cleaning service. But the mood shifts again when Spider-Woman hesitates, touches her stomach, and seriously asks if she trusts her. Captain Marvel grows more serious too and reassures her, saying she trusts her far more than any friend who isn't a quadruple secret agent or sometimes replaced by evil aliens, but she also adds that she wants to help. Spider-Woman then takes both of Captain Marvel's hands and warmly explains that the best way Captain Marvel can help right now is by doing what she does best, being a powerful Avenger and protecting the world. That way, Spider-Woman can tune out all the chaos like Kang or whoever else threatens the multiverse and focus on what she needs to handle on her own. Captain Marvel firmly promises that if she even suspects for a second that Spider-Woman is in danger, she'll come charging in like a one-woman army, fists blazing. Spider-Woman hugs her tightly and says that she's counting on it. After that, Spider-Woman puts on her mask and heads toward the window. Before leaving, she turns back and asks Captain Marvel to lock up for her, joking that she wouldn't want anyone breaking in and making the place look worse. Captain Marvel, still concerned, tells her to stay safe. Outside, Captain Marvel finds Madame Webb waiting on the rooftop of a nearby apartment. She walks over to her and asks if getting closer to Jessica helped her sense anything new about what's going on. But Madame Webb remains calm and tells her that her abilities don't work that way. The web of life vibrates in unpredictable ways, and it's not something she can control at will. Captain Marvel grows frustrated and rubs her forehead, clearly annoyed by the vague response. Madame Webb, however, keeps her eyes on the horizon. She decides to follow Spider-Woman herself and tells Captain Marvel to focus on her own path. The web, she explains, has gone through a lot. They believed it was repaired, that everything lost had been restored, but something is still missing. At the same time, across the city, Spider-Woman arrives at a nightclub in the financial district. She's chasing down a lead. Diamondback is rumored to be meeting with some Hydra agents here. As she looks around the club, she thinks about how only a few names remain on Taskmaster's list of useless, washed-up Hydra trainees. Standing on the first floor, she watches Diamondback enter the club and slips inside through a window. She silently looks around and reflects on how unusually quiet the overpriced downtown nightclub is, especially for a Friday night. A place like this should be overflowing with slick Wall Street wannabes by now. The empty vibe makes her suspect that the venue might be hosting a private party. Once inside, she finds a spot that gives her a clear view of the room below. From her higher position, she watches Diamondback already engaged in conversation with a group of Hydra agents. He addresses them with strong conviction, reminding them that some among them stood by him during his attempt to become the Kingpin, while others had thrown their support behind the red, white, and green, only to be cast out when Captain Hydra lost his re-election campaign. He emphasizes that everyone in the room shares one painful experience: getting close enough to victory to taste it, only to have it ripped away by some costumed hero. He declares that he's tired of just getting a taste. He wants the entire feast. He speaks with growing passion, pointing out that the Defenders are no longer defending anything. Luke Cage is busy with politics, Jessica Jones is caught up in motherhood, and Iron Fist, Daredevil, and even the Punisher are all preoccupied with their own troubles. According to him, the heroes who once made their lives miserable are too distracted now to notice the danger building up. Then, he pulls a folded piece of paper from his pocket. A diamond symbol is drawn on it. He holds it up for everyone to see and mentions that a few in the room have already helped distribute his new and improved product, Diamond. He doesn't mind that they've sampled it because that means they understand how powerful it is. It offers all the benefits with none of the side effects. And now, with the help of their new partners, he hints that even bigger plans are in motion, but before Diamondback can finish his sentence, all the supporters around him start shouting together, "Hail Hydra!" Spider-Woman is standing above, listening to everything, clenching her teeth in anger. Diamondback rolls his eyes, casually listening to the cheers, and says, "Ha ha, yeah! Gonna have to get used to that!" Spider-Woman, now fully charged with energy, stays hidden above the chaos and silently reminds herself to stay calm and not do anything reckless. She knows jumping into a fight with the nightclub full of goons and a gang lord-level villain isn't exactly a smart move. Down below, Diamondback raises his fist and begins shouting a chant, but before he can finish, Spider-Woman drops from above with perfect timing. She lands a powerful kick that knocks him straight to the ground. Diamondback looks up at her, furious and growling, clearly not expecting the sudden attack. But Spider-Woman doesn't back down. Her anger burns as she remembers all the things Diamondback has done, from pushing drugs to harassing Luke Cage and the others. Without hesitation, she rushes at him again, ready to end this fight. Panic spreads through the crowd as his supporters scramble toward the exits. Diamondback manages to recover quickly and tries to strike back while shouting that he's not someone to be taken lightly. He follows up with a strong kick of his own, reminding her that he has powers, strong connections, and an endless hunger for more power. Spider-Woman crashes to the ground but refuses to stay down. She stares at him, filled with rage, and makes it clear that she's not here to fight for fun. She wants answers. She doesn't care about his reputation or ego once she's done with him. She plans to rip through Hydra itself and make the city forget his name ever existed. Diamondback rises with a smirk, casually snapping his fingers as if he's still in control. He mocks her confidence, calling her words nothing more than talk. But then, with a dark twist, he reveals his latest Hydra connection isn't just about designer drugs anymore. He's brought reinforcements, and with that, he introduces someone new into the fight, the Green Mamba. Right then, Green Mamba appears in front of Spider-Woman. Spider-Woman smiles in response and says, "I think you're underestimating how much I like kicking Hydra ass." Without wasting time, she lands a solid punch on Green Mamba, leaving Diamondback surprised. She then turns her focus back to Diamondback and says, "Now it's your turn." But just then, Green Mamba recovers and gets back up, facing Spider-Woman again. The two get into a brutal fight. Green Mamba uses her powers to lift Spider-Woman and throw her far across the room. In the background, Diamondback shouts with excitement after receiving urgent news. He tells Green Mamba that something big is happening and they need to move fast. If their target is still alive, he says to leave her that way so she can deliver a message. He throws a few diamonds on the ground and makes his warning clear, not to mess with Diamondback. He then turns to his Hydra followers and points out specific members, giving them orders to rough up Spider-Woman, but not to kill her. He promises promotions if they make it to tomorrow's meeting spot in one piece. The Hydra goons immediately take hits of a diamond-based drug, giving themselves a temporary boost. But despite being outnumbered, Spider-Woman gets back on her feet. She looks at the 5 enemies in front of her unfazed. In moments, she takes them all down, knocking each one to the ground. After the fight, she mocks them, telling them to stay put until someone arrives to arrest them. She picks up a card marked with a diamond, deciding to keep it as evidence. Then she grabs a few of the diamonds from the floor, planning to use them against Diamondback the next time they meet. Later that night, on a rooftop, Spider-Woman meets up with Spider-Man. She complains about the downsides of not having a secret identity, like getting unexpected visitors in the middle of the night, but Spider-Man is serious and not in the mood for jokes. She tries to lighten the mood but realizes he's not playing along. She explains that she's joking as a way to cope because the night has been rough. Spider-Man then shares bad news. He tells her that Tombstone, Black Mariah, Mr. Negative, and all the other gang bosses are fighting for control of New York. The city is falling into chaos, and he's planning to stop it. Spider-Woman is surprised to hear this more aggressive approach from him and questions when he became so proactive. Spider-Man says he has a plan to take the gangs down, but he needs allies he can trust. Spider-Woman immediately says, "I'm in, but I've got one condition." She rolls her eyes and finishes, "Diamondback is mine.